Greetings and welcome to Slooh, Using Slooh in Education, November 2023 webinar. I'm going to be your host, Director of Curriculum, Dr. John Boisvert. And today I'm going to introduce you to Slooh and our standards aligned learning activities we have here at Slooh called quests. Now, I know that there is a wide range of audience here today, both in the webinar and tuning in through our event page, from K through 12, community colleges, universities, families, and more. You'll find that Slooh works for everyone, as we have users like you at every level. But since this is using Slooh in education, I am going to focus on the students and the educators and their journey using Slooh. So I do want to share some of today's goals. First, we're going to discover quests, learning progressions, and which education standard they address. Next, we're going to tour the Slooh dashboard. Then I'm going to show you how you can assign quests to your students and monitor their progress. Next, I'm going to show you how you and your students control Slooh's online telescopes by going on missions. Then we'll see how students learn using quests. I also want to show you where the teacher resources materials are. And towards the end, I want to show you, I want to walk you through the Space Clouds Elementary School quest. So let's jump in because we have a lot to cover. If you're brand new to Slooh, I'm sure you're wondering what a quest is. Well, quests are coherent, well-sequenced experiential learning activities that use Slooh's telescopes to capture images of celestial wonders while learning about specific aspects of astronomy, science, social sciences, history, arts, and other STEAM topics, keeping students engaged and excited to learn. There are over 60 interactive lessons that challenge your students to use Slooh to collect and analyze data to form their own conclusions. Now, our 10 online telescopes broadcast live from our flagship observatory at the Institute of Astrophysics of the Canary Islands and our Chile Observatory in association with the Catholic University of Chile. Students, especially in K through 12, are cut off from the night sky and the rest of the universe due to many factors, such as light pollution, difficulty setting up telescopes. Slooh's state-of-the-art telescopes and our quest curriculum are an equitable way to bring the universe back to the students so they can engage with space and gain a cosmic perspective. Now, Slooh currently has learning progressions for each grade band. High school has one separate for physics and for astronomy. A learning progression is a sequence of quest learning activities designed to be used in the classroom. You see, we have had teachers say that they're sometimes unsure of which quest learning activities they should assign and when. Let us help out with that. At Slooh, we have a learning progressions depending on the class that you are teaching. These learning progressions are carefully curated from our entire collection of quest learning activities Slooh has to offer and designed to be aligned to NGSS and Common Core. They start with teaching the foundations of Slooh and then provide a suggested path for going through quests. With these progressions, educators can look at their syllabus on what they're told to teach and then use these learning progressions to say, that's what I want to assign. So with Slooh's learning progressions, all educators, even those who may be at the beginning of their astronomy journeys, can confidently assign quest learning activities to their students. Now, let me show you how to get to the learning progressions from the quest discovery page. So when you log on to Slooh, you're going to find yourself on the Slooh dashboard. It looks like this. Now, along the top, this is a navigation bar that goes to different portions of the platform. Now, there is a button for quests. So when you click on this, it brings us to the quest discovery page. Now, the default view is looking at all of our quests. And so that's what we see here, all categories. However, we can filter out our quests by different learning activities by clicking on the All Quest button. The All Categories button, rather. So here, up along the top, we can see the different learning progressions that we have at Slooh. So let's click on elementary school. Now, what's pretty cool about filtering out quests this way is that the quests are put in the order that we recommend going through them based on the learning progression. So for elementary schools, we definitely recommend starting with Space Explorer and then moving on to Sun Explorer. It just basically, you can pretty much go wherever you want from here. But if you want a recommended path to go through these quests, this is a recommended path that we provide. Now, I did mention that quests address certain curriculum codes, and I want to show you where that is and where you can find that information. On the quest discovery page, you'll find that all quests have these three dots in the lower right-hand corner. If we click on that, there's different options. One of them is view quest description. And as you can see, there's a lot of information about the quests here. Now, I'm going to, and particularly there's the objectives for the quest, there's the standards addressed for each quest. So here's all of the curriculum codes that this particular quest is aligned to. Now, I'm going to show you a way to see this curricular information for every quest in a moment, but not for all in a moment, instead of just for one quest. But before we do that, I want to take you to workspaces. So along this top navigation bar, we have workspaces. So let's go ahead and click on that. So a workspace is a place where you can monitor your students' progress. And so classrooms have their own private workspace for student engagement and interaction. These spaces foster collaboration and competition, similar to that in scientific community. Now, you create your own workspace by clicking on this link, the Create Workspace link. Now, only teachers have this button available. Here, you fill some options out, such as your workspace name, the workspace description, selecting the school year. Now, my suggestion is to create a workspace for each class section that you have, because that will keep your students interacting and collaborating with the classmates that they see at school. Although, if you'd like, you can have just one big workspace with all of your students in it. It is your choice, but once you make that decision, you won't be able to go back, as the invite mechanism that I'm just going to show you here in a moment can only be used once per student. Now, I want to show you my demo workspace, as I cannot show you any real education workspaces for privacy reasons. But here's my workspace name, here's my workspace message, and notice it is editable. So that's something you can change, but the workspace name is something that you cannot change though. So make sure that you've decided on the name that you want to have for your workspace, and be sure about it. Now, when you first go into a workspace, you're going to find yourself on the Assignments tab. This is the default tab for teachers. Students don't have this Assignments tab. What they have is the Observations tab, Discussions tab, and Leaderboard tab. Okay, now let's click on the Students tab. This is going to show all of the students that are in my class. I have one demo student account, so they are inside my classroom. But I want to show you how to invite your students to your workspace. You want to do that by clicking on this Invite Student button. So what you have to do is fill out their first name, fill out their last name, and fill out their email address. After you click Send Invitation, they're going to get an email with a link inside. When they click on that link, bam, they're on the platform inside this particular workspace. So you can then monitor their progress with Quest learning activities and through gravity points. Now, you can also share this unique link down here with your students as well, and they can enter the workspace that way. But beware, only share this link with your students, because if any other students from other classes get this link and use it, they're going to find themselves in your workspace taking up a seat that's allocated to you. So when next year rolls around, you'll have to create another workspace for the new school year and invite your students again in the same way. So these workspace tools create a more personalized experience to meet an educator's needs. To sum it up, classroom workspaces are where students discuss what they're learning on the platform and perhaps help each other out if they encounter any difficulty with quests. Now, I'm sure you've noticed this assignments button. You can assign Quest learning activities to your students by using this Add Assignment button. Let's take a look. So you can actually go through and assign individual quests to students, or you can use this filter and call up an entire learning progression of quests. Here's the elementary school one, for example. And if you want to assign all of these quests to your students in the recommended order, all you need to do is click on this big blue button here, and it's going to assign all of these quests to your students. But you can also pick and choose and assign the quests as you and your class progress through the learning progression in your own way. So I do want to show you what this looks like though. So when we click on assign, we have some options. You can choose which workspace you want to assign this quest to. Now, I have two demo workspaces, and so they're both shown here. You could also assign quests to individual students if you'd like as well. So that's on the Students tab. So here I can see my student, and I can assign the quest just to that student by using this Assign button. But I do want to point out that on the Student tab, all the way at the bottom, is a blue button that says Assign to all students. If you do this, what's going to happen is the quest is going to be assigned to all of your students across all of your workspaces. Now, what I want to be very clear about is be sure that you're assigning the quests that you're intending to assign to your students, as we do not have a way to unassign a quest at this current moment. That is something that we are working on, though. So I want to navigate back to the page that had all of the quests on it, because there's a really important link that's on this view that says See Curriculum Alignment. When you click on this, this will bring you to Slooh's Airtable of quests, which is basically a spreadsheet that contains a bunch of information about all of the quests that we have here at Slooh. Now, as you can see, we've aligned quests to NGSS science and engineering practices, disciplinary core ideas, cross-cutting concepts, performance expectations. We've also aligned quests to the Common Core State Standards for ELA and math. In addition, we've aligned the quest to the Texas Administrative Code as well for elementary through high school. Now, what's pretty neat about the spreadsheet or about the Airtable is you can sort by grade level. And when you sort by grade level, this groups the quests by the different grade bands. So you can see where all of the elementary appropriate quests are. You can see where the middle school quests are. And you'll even find that some quests are appropriate for both high schools and colleges, and you'll find that information on the Airtable as well. So these Airtables are a pretty neat way to search through quests to support your education. Now, a Slooh quest culminates in creating a poster-sized infographic that showcases the students' images captured themselves with Slooh's telescopes. That's right, your students make these posters during the quest. Now, in most cases, their infographic posters incorporate their responses to questions within the quest. In this particular example, students are describing what happens between each stage of stellar evolution for a star like the sun. These personalized infographics generate a spirit of accomplishment for the student while providing an easy tool to recall the content they learned while on the quest. Now, since students are using their own captured images, and students can actually edit the colors and fonts and redesign all of the elements that are on the posters, every student poster is unique. No two posters are alike. This flexibility allows students to explore their artistic expression and create something that speaks to them and for them. Now, in some quests, students create animations out of their captures, such as the Our Rotating Star quest. Another is In the Footsteps of Clyde Tombaugh, where they recreate the discovery of Pluto with Slooh's telescopes. It is circled here. If you look closely, you can see Pluto moving with respect to the background stars. Now, there are other quests that utilize Slooh's animation module, and we keep thinking about ways to incorporate them into quests, because not only do students use quests to capture the universe, Slooh and Slooh's quest to capture the universe, but they see it come alive. Now, quests are a great way for students of all levels to stay involved on the platform, as they give students structure and provide goals for learning and capturing images for their collection. Students follow in the footsteps of professional astronomers, from learning about their captured objects to planning and executing authentic observational astronomy missions by considering factors that may affect their outcome, like weather, object altitude, and moon's location. Now, I do want to show you a few different ways for scheduling missions tonight. But first, I want to go through a tour of the dashboard. So students begin on the Slooh dashboard, and you will too. The dashboard is the student's front seat to their exploration of space. Now, right up at the top here is information about star parties. So right here, you can see that it's advertising our star party that we're in right now. So star parties that are more for educators are only going to be shown to educators. A student wouldn't see this using Slooh in Education star party, but they will see the Geminids meteor shower star party coming up. They will also see the 2024 Great American Eclipse um, star party being advertised here. So students are going to be watching this and hopefully saying, "Hey, I'm excited to participate in the star party." Oftentimes, we have special quest learning activities called Moments Quests that are tied to these star parties so that students can have more of a learning about whatever these topics are they're recovering in star parties and create a poster using images that they captured during the star party itself. So these are fun things, and we put them front and center so that we can all have that on our radars. So underneath this is information about each observatory. So there is a button that allows you to go to each of the telescopes when they're online. But the best way to go to the telescopes is by clicking on the telescope button on the navigation bar. You can see this blue icon, which means that at least one telescope is taking a look into space. And so when you click on that, we can see all of the different telescopes. And again, we can see Canary 1 through Canary 4 are the telescopes that are online, and that mirrors exactly what we see on the dashboard. So there's a couple ways. We want to make sure that there's as many doors to the telescopes open as we can, because it's really fun to go and check them out to see what's in there. Take a quick look. Ooh, this one's a really cool galaxy. All right, back to quests. Where are we? Here we go. Back on our tour. So underneath this is where missions are. And missions are how you and your students control one of the 10 telescopes that Slooh has in their online telescope arsenal. We are going to come back to missions a little bit right after the tour. Underneath the mission section is where quests are located. Now there is the other way to get to quests using the navigation bar, but when your students are assigned quests, and if your student starts a quest they're not assigned, they will show up in the My Quest category. So this is important. So when you assign quests to your students, those quests are going to show up in the My Quest category of the dashboard so that students know exactly which quests that they need to complete for their class assignments. Now, underneath this is photos. This is a collection of every captured image that a student has. You can click on View My Photos, and you can actually search through for a particular object. So let's say one that I can't see on the screen, but I think is really fun right now is called the Flame Nebula. This nebula is right to the right next to the leftmost star of Orion's belt. So this star right here is the leftmost star in Orion's belt, and the light from that star is causing hydrogen gas to emit light in a cloud that's nearby. I think that's really cool. And the cloud, the nebula, looks like a flame. One of my favorite ones. All right, so let's get back to the dashboard. So you can search through your missions. All of these photos that are on the My Photos here, these are all missions that I've gone on and captured these objects for my collection. So here, full moon, for example, I have 177 full moon photos that I've caught throughout my tenure here at Slooh. So, okay, now let's get back to the dashboard. Underneath photos is a section for observations. And observations are captured images where a student has added their perspective to an object. And where's the added their perspective to an object, and says why this moment is unique, add some interesting information. And students can come in and they can like these observations, they can comment on these observations, and observations that get a particular threshold of likes end up getting pushed to the featured tab instead of the all tab. And so this is a fun way to kind of see what other students and others are doing with Slooh's telescopes. And it's really fun. And sometimes when in these observations, the author will actually say, oh, I combined X number of images, or this is directly from the telescopes. And so it kind of, it's a fun way to see what you can do with Slooh's telescopes. Yeah. So I want to spend some time now to talk about missions, because missions are how you and your students control one of Slooh's online telescopes. Now, a Slooh mission has 3 key parameters to it. The Slooh missions are a fixed time to look at a particular object with a specific telescope. Now, I want us to see how this works together. So when you're on the missions part of the dashboard, if I could find it, here we can see that we're provided with 3 featured missions every day. Now, these missions, you can see it's a fixed time to look at a particular object with a specific telescope. And so these missions are basically like the best missions that are available this evening. And for the particular time of year that we're on, et cetera, et cetera. So when you hit join mission and join mission again, now when this time comes around, and it's going to happen soon. In an hour and 40 minutes, the telescope is going to move over to where the Pleiades star cluster is, take an image, and it's going to deliver it to my personal profile. So what's really interesting about that is that even though we have these 3 featured missions, what if there was an object that you wanted to schedule a mission to, but it's not one of these featured missions? Well, you can click on the schedule mission button here and schedule a mission on the telescopes that way. Now, this way is called setting up a mission using the Slooh 1000, which are the 1000 most spectacular objects in the night sky. So it's a 3-step process. Step 1 is choose the category of object. Let's maybe choose planets. Step 2 is choose the object. So when I look through, Jupiter is available right now. It's pretty, we recently had opposition, so Jupiter and Earth had their closest approach for this year. And yeah, so planets, Jupiter, hit preview mission, and boom, we're given a mission card, and we can choose to either go on the mission or not. So I'm going to hit schedule. So now when this time rolls around, the telescope is going to move over to where the Chile 1 telescope is going to move over to where Jupiter is and take an image. And what's really cool about this is that students don't have to be on the platform when their mission occurs in order to obtain their image captures, though they are encouraged to look through the telescope as the image is automatically processed in real time as the telescope collects more and more photons, which look like this animation. So students can hang out on the live feed and use this camera button to snap live images of the telescope. So here, for example, is a beautiful image of the Iris Nebula. Now, let me just take a look through some of the other ones. Ooh, this is Running Man Nebula. I love this one. Here's the Orion Nebula down here. Orion Nebula and the Running Man Nebula are right next to each other. So I want to snap an image of this for my collection. So all I need to do is click on this camera icon button, and this snaps an image of this object, and this is going to be available in my photo section of the dashboard. It's pretty sweet. All right, so that's the quick and easy way for scheduling a mission, but I want to show you how to schedule a mission to the same object where you and your students will have a little more flexibility with the scheduling, and it's by using the object's guide pages. So up here, now let me get back to the tab that I was on. All right, so up towards the top, there's this magnifying glass, and this searches through all of the guides that we have at Slooh. You can think of a guide as being an article. And so we have these guides for the various telescopes and observatories. We have guides for constellations. We have guides for famous astronomers, but we also have a guide for every object that's in the Slooh database. So I'm going to search up Jupiter here and click Find. And we can see that there's actually a few different queries that come up when you search for Jupiter. There actually is a nebula called the Ghost of Jupiter. It's one of my favorite ones. It's really cool. But let's click on Jupiter. So when you click on Jupiter, there is a missions tab that's right here. So when you click on missions, this brings you to a page that looks like this. Now this gives you some more flexibility for scheduling your missions tonight. So here, the first thing that we get to choose is a date. So let's see what happens on November 16th, which it's actually already November 16th, even though right now in America, it's still November 15th. What's going on here? Well, on Slooh, we use universal coordinated time, which is basically, you can think of it as the time zone of the Earth. And we always display the time zone up here in this top bar on the website. So here we can see that it's actually 28 minutes into the new day. And so we don't have an option for November 16th. So anyways, so we choose today's date. Let's scroll down a little bit, and we're going to be given mission cards for the Canary Island Observatory. And so here we're provided with 3 possible missions that we can choose from. So see what I mean? We have a little more flexibility here. Not only that, we're given more information to help us decide which one of these mission cards we want to go on. So we have weather forecast, we have object altitude, which is how high in the sky the object is. We're also given information about the moon. When the moon is above the horizon, it's pretty bright and it could actually affect the image quality. So what you want to do is you want to wait for the weather forecast to be clear, object altitude to be a large number, and moon altitude to be below horizon, and you're going to be pretty confident to get a good image. Now, you can see that we actually have the trifecta right here for this last Jupiter mission. So I'm going to go ahead and schedule this now so I don't forget. But I also want to show you that if you were to keep scrolling down on this page, we would have been given some information about the Chile Observatory as well. And down from the Chile Observatory, we're also provided 3 mission cards. But already here, I can see that the weather forecast is calling for light clouds in Chile. Now, if the forecasts were calling for mostly cloudy in the Canary Islands, then these light clouds in Chile 1 or in the Chile Observatory wouldn't be something to prevent you from scheduling missions. I would totally schedule a mission using under light cloudy conditions, especially because if you think about light clouds, there's a lot of windows that are within partly cloudy skies. So keep all of this in mind when you're doing these mission schedulings. But when you're scheduling from the guide pages, you do have more flexibility. Okay. The last thing that I want to talk about in terms of scheduling, or in terms of capturing objects with Slooh's telescopes, is I want to talk about Slooh's solar telescope. As we do have a solar telescope in the Canary Islands that on every weekday takes a look at the sun. So I do have a video here, but video, oh, there it is. That's it was just coming up. So it's already nighttime in the Canary Islands, so I can't show you what it looks like to snap an image from the solar telescope. So I did this one earlier. So here we can see the big, beautiful sun, and all we need to do is click on the camera icon button, which is what we did just a moment ago with the Running Man Nebula. And we have this image of the sun captured and ready for use within a quest. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit more about quests. So quests are a significant part of our gamification of space exploration. Students collect a heap of gravity points by completing quests. And gravity points are Slooh's equivalent of experience points. Now, students earn gravity points from doing most activities on the platform, like scheduling missions, posting observations, etc. And students need gravity points to progress through the 9 levels of Slooh that honor the contributions of famous astronomers worldwide, from the classical era all the way through to the modern day. So quests can be found by clicking on the quest button that's on the top of the page. So this here, we did this together a little bit earlier. And let's start going through the Space Explorer quest in the elementary school learning progression. This is an all new elementary school quest. Now, earlier I showed us the view quest description on there's a bunch of information that you can read about the quest from the quest discovery page. When you click into the quest, that same information is displayed here. This I like to think of as the quest overview page. Now, quests are a series of steps, and each step has multiple panels. There are quest goals and step objectives clearly laid out in the beginning of the quest for students to know the main points that they're about to learn. What's more is we've edited the Lexile levels of our quest to differentiate the text so that more students can access the material. Now, every quest step has a set of vocabulary terms that students will learn. They're indicated at the beginning of each quest and clearly defined at the step's end. Now, the terms and definitions are bolded and italicized in the body so students can understand what they mean in context. And students are assessed on their understanding of these terms through various questions. Now, while we're on the, I do want to show you what it's like to schedule a mission within the quest itself. So this particular quest that I'm showing you is called the Milky Way Doppelganger quest, and teaches students kinds of galaxies. And what they need to do is they need to capture one of the galaxies on this list and then determine whether or not it's the same kind of galaxy as the Milky Way galaxy. And so we provide these observation tables within Quest to help students zero in on the exact objects that they need to capture to complete the quest. Now, a student doesn't need to capture all of these objects. They just need to capture one of these objects. And you can see that we've given visibility information across the Canary Islands and across the Chile observatories. This is because not every object in the night sky is available all year round. So we need to, we've season-proofed the quests as much as possible so that it doesn't matter when in the year you want to do this quest with your students, you'll be able to do it. So we're already past early November. We're into mid-November, so there should be some Whirlpool Galaxy missions for us to go on. So you'll notice that all of these are links within the quest. So when the student clicks on a Whirlpool Galaxy, it's going to take them to the objects guide page for that particular object. We were on this page earlier for Jupiter, but now we're on it for the Whirlpool Galaxy. And so if I scroll down, I can see that, there's some good missions that we have on the Canary Islands. I remember that the weather forecast is clear. I remember that the weather forecast is actually calls for light clouds in Chile, but the Whirlpool Galaxy happens to be an object that's only visible from the Canary Islands. Some objects are a little too north in the sky to be seen from the Southern Observatory, and some objects are too much in the southern part of the sky to be seen from our Northern Hemisphere Observatory. So let's take a quick run through. It looks like 37 degrees altitude, moon's below the horizon, weather forecast clear. This is totally the one that we need to get. So scheduling myself onto this mission, when this time rolls around in a few hours, I will get a new image of the Whirlpool Galaxy. So when students when students actually get their images from the telescopes, how do they put them into the quests? Well, let me show you. So there's a couple things. First off, this is where they're going to put their image here. But I also want to scroll down and show you that this question that that the quest is asking the students has kind of a placeholder image here. So let's see what happens when we put our image into the data collection slot. So here it says select your image for the quest second capture, and we have to fill our image with an image from one of these 8 possible galaxies. And so it gives me all of the images for all of these galaxies that I have on my account, and it puts them in chronological order. So the newest one is first, and so I want to put an image of the Whirlpool Galaxy back in there. I really like this one here because it has this streak along the right side. This is actually a satellite that photobombed my capture. Pretty cool that that sort of stuff happens. But when I look at the next question, that placeholder graphic is gone and it's replaced with the image that I put into the data collection module. So as your students schedule and capture images on Slooh's telescopes, when they insert them into the quest, they're kind of finishing and completing the quest itself, because students are analyzing their own images during the quest learning activities. So all quests that require capturing objects outside of the solar system, and actually inside of the solar system, will have some sort of links that will take them to a page for them to schedule images to complete this particular quest. Now, I did mention some assessment when speaking about the vocabulary terms, and I just want to cover a few of those ways that students learn using Slooh. Now, Slooh assesses learning through multiple choice, fill in the blank, and free response questions. And so we use these kinds of questions to develop activities that have students analyzing their captured images to explain phenomenon in paragraph form. Students are using these quests to learn how to evaluate, communicate, and obtain information that they're learning about. The output in these quests are clear whether or not the student is answering correctly or incorrectly for free response and multiple choice questions. Free response questions, as educators, you're going to have to grade those yourselves, as we don't have a mechanism for reading through a free response box. But we also have some other flavors that are pretty neat to look through as well. So we do have math across some of our quests, and quests that do have math in them, we make sure that we are very clear about the equations that we want them to use. We make sure that we're very clear about the units that we expect the students to put the numbers into the equations with. So in this particular case, this is from our How Far quest, where students are converting distances to celestial objects to different units. And we also have a calculator within the quest that allows students to copy and paste the numbers into the calculator for use, and then once there is an answer in the calculator, students can copy that answer and paste it directly into the fill in the blank spots. We also have fail comfortably free response questions. So we have questions like this that this is in our Stars Like Ours quest, where students watch the sun become larger and turn red, and they're asked to explain what's going on in this video. Now, it's pretty certain that students probably don't know how the sun evolves from being a main sequence star to a red giant star, but after they get through the quest, they should be able to update their response and fully explain what's going on within the video. Now, another way that you can assess student learning is by reviewing their final infographics. So once students are towards the end of the quest, a student is going to be making an infographic poster using the knowledge that they've gained throughout the quest. And so I'll just show you here, and you hit edit poster. There are it's pretty easy to grab an image, hit on image, quest images, and this shows all of the images that the quest has. Now, this is from the Milky Way Doppelganger quest, and we just put in this Whirlpool Galaxy image together. So I can click this, I can add the Whirlpool Galaxy image to the slot. And one thing that's really fun about these, the custom poster tool, is you can actually edit the images and crop them and do a little bit of adjusting on them. So again, like I was mentioning earlier, all of these quests are unique from one another. A student may crop their images a little differently. A student may capture a completely different galaxy than the ones that are shown here. So, and then students can actually edit the colors and fonts on anything that they would like on the posters as well. So these are a really fun way to assess their learning, because they could potentially put their galaxies in the incorrect spot, and you'll totally be able to say, hey, I think you need to go back and fix your poster. But with this custom poster tool, we also create different activities that use it so that students can really get an understanding and get familiar with the custom poster tool so that they can make some really awesome graphics. So here I just did an activity which is from our Clyde Tombaugh quest, which has students lining up images to see the motion of a planet with respect to the background. Now, you can understand that a student can potentially do so much within their posters or within these activities that they kind of find themselves in like a no man's land. Well, we do have a reset button on the bottom left that if a student can click on it and then click restart, it will revert the custom poster back to its original template and they can begin again. Okay. Now, as educators, when you're on the Quest overview pages, you're going to see a button that says Teacher Resources. Now, when you click on this, it's going to download a zip file that contains a PDF, a Quest Guidelines. Now, these Quest Guidelines are not intended to be consumed in full, but rather used as a reference guide for the Quest. It includes an example poster of what your students will create, some Quest tips for success, definitions for all of the vocabulary word definitions, and which step they come from, but it also includes an answer key to every question in the quest, even free response questions. It gives you an idea of what your students should be answering within those particular kinds of questions. So this is important to have on hand. Download it to your device, to your computer, and be able to have this to access if you need some help with grading. Now, you may be wondering how quests have been utilized in the classroom. Now, like I mentioned, there really is no wrong way to consume a quest. Integrating quests as homework assignments are a pretty good idea, or classroom assignments. Colleges could use longer quests as laboratory assignments, as they're the perfect length to keep students engaged for a lab period. Shorter quests are ideal for college astronomy labs as a supplement or an additional section to an already put together lab assignment. We've had a good number of community colleges and universities using the platform this way. Some ways that we've seen teachers, especially in elementary schools, using integrate quests, elementary and middle schools actually integrating quests, include projecting their quest onto the whiteboard and going through it together as a class. We've also shortened the length and text within the elementary and middle school quests so that you can have students do popcorn reading as a class. You can also split your class into smaller groups and have them go through the quest together, even having the smaller groups reading the quest to each other. So quests are also the perfect jumping off point for a research project or report, perhaps surrounding Project Apollo, tied to Clyde Tombaugh, or some other inspiring objects captured within the quest. Now, suppose you'd like some more ideas for using classrooms in the class. In that case, I suggest checking out some of our past educator workshops and webinars. Now, let me show you where they are. Up along the top navigation bar, you want to click on Community, and then click on Star Parties. Then down here, there is a spot for educator workshops. So we've had educators from all grade bands give star parties showing how they've integrated Slooh into their own classrooms. So we have shows about using Slooh in elementary schools, using Slooh in colleges, high schools, middle schools, etc. So I definitely recommend taking a little bit of time and checking out this resource and seeing if you can get some other ideas here for how to use Slooh in your classroom. Now, I mentioned quest reports a few times, and so what are they? So a quest report is a report of the student's work that you can use for grading. So the students' captured images and posters will appear in their quest report, as well as answers to questions that they've been asked. This is where you'll find the free response answers to the free response questions that your students answer. You'll also see answers to the multiple choice questions and the number of attempts, etc. So you can use that as a way for further grading. Now, in the last moments that I have with you today, because we're almost done, I want to go through one of the new elementary school quests called Space Clouds. And this is the perfect kind of quest for capturing the most magnificent objects in the universe Slooh has to offer with Slooh's telescopes. Now, step one of this quest. And this, like I mentioned, this is an elementary school quest. Here are the performance expectations that the quest is aligned with, and disciplinary core ideas, etc. So let's dive right in. So step one is an introduction to the quest. This is where all of the missions are scheduled. So here is an example of, or here is the observation table for the first kind of nebula that they need to capture, a reflection nebula. So they need to capture one of these four objects. Then they need to capture a dark nebula. Again, we've given four objects to look through, or to capture, excuse me, and links as well. Then there's spot for the third type of nebula that they're going to explore in the Space Clouds quest, and also links that will take them directly to the guide page, the mission tab of the guide pages, so that students can schedule missions. And that's it for step one. Now, step two is all about energy. What is energy? Where does it come from? And that energy is never created or destroyed. It just transfers from place to place. I really like this because it really sets a good foundation for showing how energy transfers from one thing to another, like from a hammer to a nail. And towards the end, there's actually a mini lesson on patterns before we start to see the relationship between wavelength and the energy of light. Now, step three is all about reflections, light reflections, and reflection nebulae. So here I already have a Running Man Nebula image in here, even though we just captured one together using the Canary 3 telescope. This is actually a Running Man Nebula from the Canary 1 telescope. And so already here we can see that depending on the telescope that you're looking at, you may actually see something a little different. Sorry, I just had to make a quick reference, something I need to take a look at later. So, like I said, this step is also teaches students about light and how light works, how light spreads out, and how the brightness of a star gets dimmer the further away it is from the observer. And we kind of scaffold this using cars at first before we start moving over to stars. But we also go through compositions of clouds because these nebulae in space contain different compositions. And we relate this to the clouds that we are familiar with here on Earth. There is a reflection nebula model that students engage with, and other activities that have students figure out, okay, what do we need to do to have a dim reflection nebula or a really bright reflection nebula? Where does the star need to go in order for that to happen? I think that's pretty fun. The next step, step 4, they continue to learn about nebulae, and in this step, they're studying the dark nebulae, and how light gets blocked or absorbed by various materials. Now, what I really like about this is, again, we start with an Earth cloud because we've seen these kinds of nebulae here on Earth. So a dark nebula with a cloud on Earth is basically when the sun is behind it. So the sunlight is being absorbed by the cloud and we can't see it. But another way to kind of get a feeling for this is to see what effect the amount of material has to the amount of light that's absorbed. The more material that are in these clouds, or the more dust that's in a dark nebula, the dimmer it's going to appear, the darker it's going to look. And so they do some sense making with a video like this to show that adding more pieces of paper between a video camera and a light source actually deadens out the light. It actually makes it red too, which is a story for another day. So with using these sense-making activities and examples, they can understand how dark nebulae work. They also have a model that they engage with as well. And so there's a lot of fun learning that they've done here. What's the similarity and difference between dark nebulae and reflection nebula? Lots of fun. The next step is about emission nebulae. Now, emission nebulae are a little strange because there is no equivalent of these kinds of clouds in the sky. Uh, these are more related to like a neon sign. Because what's happening in a neon sign like this is there's actually neon atoms that are releasing light. And that's what's happening in emission nebulae. In emission nebulae, there's hydrogen gas that's emitting light. Newborn stars are emitting light of extreme energies in the regions of ultraviolet, and the hydrogens within the nebula are absorbing that light and re-emitting it as this pinkish red light that we see in the telescopes. So students engage with that, and they even learn that not only does neon have its own special color, but hydrogen has its own special color. In fact, every atom on the periodic table has its own special colors that they emit. Spoiler alert, we don't really go into this, but the same thing with molecules. Molecules have a very specific spectrum of colors that they emit. So they also have a model of emission nebulae to explain why emission nebulae are red. We just went through this explanation together. And then towards the end of this step, there's nebular connections where we try and really connect up reflection nebula with emission nebula. What's the similarities? What's the differences? What are the similarities and differences between let me get down to it, between dark nebulae and reflection nebulae? So they have this activity where they have a reflection nebula, but they need to turn it into a dark nebula. So adjust this model to get the nebula that we're asking for. And also a similar activity where we have students, where we give students an incomplete model of a dark nebula and an emission nebula, and we give them a star and a really hot star, and we have them actually create the correct model for each of these kinds of nebulae. So that's a lot of fun. The last step before they collect their badge, they create an infographic poster using the images that they've captured. Students can also edit these images. For example, my dark nebula image, I actually rotated 90 degrees so that I can see the head of the Horsehead Nebula. But there's room for student responses here. So you may have noticed that there were free response questions throughout the quest, and some of those free response questions are going to be available for students to actually place onto their posters. Once they place that text onto the poster, students will be able to edit the words that are on the inside the text box that gets placed, but students can also they can also change the color, change the font, change the size, etc. So it's a mechanism that allows students to grab answers to free response questions within the quest, which is pretty cool. So this is my Space Clouds poster, and after this, on the next step, there is for elementary school quests and for new middle school quests that are going to be launching this January. There's this summary of learning, and for post January, for high school and college, the summary of learnings are going to be a reading exercise. For elementary schools and middle schools, it's actually going to be an activity that students need to engage with. So here, students need to fill these blanks with the correct words to basically build their own summary of learning. And with these summary of learnings, educators can go into the teacher resources and find a quest quiz that we have in there and actually print out that quiz and give it to their class. The quest quiz is based on the summary of learnings, and the summary of learnings are based on the quest itself. So that's a fun way, another fun way where you can assess student learning. Now, once a student completes all of the activities within the quest, finishes up their posters, captures all of their images, there will be a little button that says claim your quest badge here at the bottom. Once students click that claim quest badge, they will get a badge, they will earn the gravity point rewards for that particular quest, and they'll be able to move on to another quest. I do want to point out that once a student finishes a quest, they will be able to go to the quest overview page like this, and there's going to be a button somewhere that says edit quest. And when your student clicks that edit quest button, they'll be able to go back into the quest and change the images that they put into their poster and edit their poster, etc. So we have a lot of fun things that are coming out in the next few months for January and post-January. So I'm really excited for that particular webinar to show you the fun things that we have in store. But for now, as you can see, quests are authentic, remote, observational astronomy activities using Slooh's online telescope arsenal of 10 robotically controlled live telescopes at premier observatory sites worldwide. They teach students how to explore space in a self-directed manner while completing standards-aligned learning activities that challenge them. A remarkable aspect of astronomy is that it touches on many subjects and topics. Astronomy is a gateway science that uses the phenomenon captured in telescopes to inspire and encourage students to think scientifically. Therefore, Slooh is more than just an astronomy platform. It's a STEAM platform that inspires and encourages learning of practical skills in an exciting and engaging way that prepares students for their future careers. So I cannot believe that that's all the time that we have today. So I'm in the live telescopes right now, just taking a look at what we can see. So don't forget to do that for yourself and keep snapping images for your collection. Let's take a look at this Running Man that I snapped earlier together. Wow, that's pretty sweet. So thank you so much for everybody for your attention, everybody that's here in the webinar and those watching from our event page. I hope that you have a blast exploring space with your students. I'd also like to give a huge thank you to Gretchen Bickert, who is here behind the scenes, managing the various streams for us and watching over the chat, Q&A, and more tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you 1,000 times. Well, until next time, educators, keep reaching past the stars to the galaxies beyond.